Hey, welcome to Anime What Ifs. This is part 14. What if Naruto married Temari? Naruto sat at his desk in his father's old study, intently reading a scroll concerning Uzumaki clan practices. The news that Iwagakure was trying to use an Uzumaki clan custom he had been completely unaware of had been most unpleasant. He was profoundly grateful to Temari for stopping it, even if the results left him with a strong desire to murder Sasuke. Before coming downstairs, after tucking an exhausted Temari into bed, he'd popped his head in to check on Sakura. The sight of his old crush restlessly pulling against her restraints in her sleep had made him almost angry enough to draw on Kyuubi's power. The ugly scars running down the girl's forearms, the reason for the restraints, had literally left him seeing red before he fled the room to calm down. I may not be able to do anything directly to you, Sasuke, he fumed as he continued to read his scroll, but don't think I won't make you pay for hurting Sakura-chan like that. Shaking off his resurgent anger, he pursed his lips as he got to the section of the scroll regarding marriage. It really was interesting. The old Uzumaki practice wasn't designed simply to expand the family. After the marriage, the women were legally considered to be sisters and any children were considered to belong to all adults in the marriage. The goal was to offer as safe and stable an environment for the children as possible for shinobi and to provide a support net for the spouses. Naruto set the scroll down and pursed his lips as he thought. He could see the advantages, but he had no desire for another wife. He hadn't particularly wanted to marry Temari, even if he was now glad that he had. Naruto snorted. As far as he was concerned, he was hers, and she was his. He had no desire to screw up the dynamic of their relationship, even if he wasn't entirely sure what it was. How does one know if they love their wife anyway? Pushing back his chair, Naruto stood and stretched with a yawn. A quick glance at the clock told him he had some time to sleep before he needed to meet with Bachan and Team Guy. Padding softly up the stairs, Naruto snorted at a sudden thought. I need rest if I'm to deal with Lee. Being back, he's probably recharged his youth. Passing Sakura's room, he paused when he heard her whimpering in her sleep. He wanted to go and comfort her, but it was probably a bad idea. Sighing, he resumed his trek to the master bedroom. Entering the room, he paused again to drink in the image before him. The slight breeze through the open window caused the curtains to move, causing shadows to dance across his wife in the moonlight. Sometime after Naruto had tucked her in, Temari had kicked off some of her blankets and Naruto moved forward in a daze to lightly run his hand along the smooth skin of her legs. Kami, she's beautiful, he thought with a lump in his throat. Quickly stripping down and changing into his normal nightwear, he slid in behind Temari and wrapped his arms around her. Nuzzling his nose against the back of her neck, he breathed in the scent of his wife and felt himself relax. When Temari snuggled further into his embrace in her sleep, claiming one of his arms as her new pillow, Naruto grinned and placed his other hand against the barely noticeable bump on her stomach. Closing his eyes, he felt himself completely at peace and he fell asleep with one last thought. Maybe this is how you know. The first rays of sunlight woke Naruto and he blearily glared at the sun for waking him. He didn't want to get up, he was comfortable, damn it, but duty called. At some point, Temari had rolled over in her sleep and wrapped a leg around him. Pleasant and comfortable, but he wasn't sure how he was supposed to get up without disturbing her, and she simply looked too peaceful to wake up. Looking around the room for some way to escape, Naruto glumly came to the conclusion that he was going to have to wake her up. Reaching forward, he gently smoothed her hair back behind her ear. Temari-chan, he said quietly. Temari-chan, wake up, I need to go. Temari mumbled in her sleep and pulled him even closer than before, hooking her foot around his ankle to hold him in place. Well, that didn't work. Glancing outside, he figured he still had some time, so leaning forward, he kissed his sleeping wife. At that first electric contact with her lips, Naruto deepened his kiss, pouring all his emotions, all the longing he'd felt for her while he was away into it. He almost didn't notice when her hand came up to stroke his whisker mark, yes, but he did, and opening his eyes, he saw Temari's green eyes watching him with a sparkle. Good morning, Naruto-kun, she whispered huskily when he broke off the kiss. Using the leverage her leg provided, she flipped Naruto onto his back and straddled his stomach. Leaning forward, her unbound hair brushing against the sides of his face, she pressed her forehead against his with a throaty chuckle. If that's how you wake me after you've been gone, I might have to ask Tsunade-sama to send you out more often. Ah, no fair, Temari-chan. Naruto pouted. I was just showing you how much I missed you. Temari chuckled again and ran her hand up under his t-shirt. Oh? I can think of other ways you might show me you missed me. Naruto groaned as he tried to ignore his body's reaction to Temari gently running her nails along his skin. I would love to, Dada Boyo, but I have to go report on the mission to the old Huggy. Temari pouted from her place on top of him. Does it have to be now? She whined. Naruto raised his hand and cupped her cheek gently. Yes, I ordered Team Guy to meet me there at 0900 and I'm sure if I don't show, Bachan will send Lee to get me. Temari shuddered. She didn't want him to leave, but dealing with Lee this early in the morning? She preferred to keep her sanity intact, thank you. Fine, she groused. But you owe me. Before she could slide off him, Naruto captured her mouth with another brief kiss. I promise I will, Temari-chan. Nodding, Temari moved back to her side of the bed so he could get up. Watching him get dressed, amused by the fact that he seemed embarrassed by it, she was surprised when he turned back to her with a serious expression. Temari-chan, how do you know if you love someone? He asked quietly. Buying time to think of an answer, Temari slid off the bed and donned her robe. Gliding across the room to her husband, she tilted his face to hers with a finger. I'm not sure what to tell you, Naruto. Temari sighed sadly. You know that growing up wasn't very happy for me, not as bad as you and certainly not as bad as Gaara, but I don't think I have the answer. Seeing Naruto shift uncomfortably, she gave him a gentle smile. I do know that I'm happy here with you, Naruto. Even when you piss me off, I still enjoy the time I get with you. When you were gone on that mission, I worried every single day and I prayed to Kami that you would come back to me. Temari pulled Naruto into a hug. I don't know if it's love, but for me, it's enough. Naruto felt a tear trail down his face as he returned Temari's embrace. Everything she'd said, he'd felt, and she was right. It was enough for him too. Gently pushing her away, he reached up and smoothed her hair behind her ear, smiling at her. You make me happy too, Temari-chan. The sound of nearby sobs tore the teens from their moment and both cursed under their breath in sync. Naruto ran his hand over his face in irritation. Damn, I forgot about her. Glancing at the clock next to the bed, Naruto groaned. Temari-chan, can you watch her until I get done with Bachan? Seeing the glare Temari gave him, he held his hands out defensively. I know you and Ino watched her before, but I promise I'll try and take care of this after my meeting with Bachan. Temari sighed and massaged her temple. Fine, but you better keep that promise. Naruto gave her a thumbs up as he began to head out the door. Of course, I always keep my promises, Dada Boyo. Temari just waved absently after him and tightened her robe. She hadn't been fond of Sakura, and after 2 weeks of her raving suicidal behavior, she was tempted to just kill her. Only the fact that Naruto would be very angry kept her from doing it, and she had days she wasn't sure she cared. Heading downstairs to the kitchen, she muttered under her breath as she prepared a small breakfast and placed it on a tray. While far from a gourmet chef, Temari had been spurred by the fact that Naruto was a better cook and had learned some simple dishes from Ino. Lifting the tray, Temari headed back upstairs to the room Sakura was restrained in and pushed the door open with her foot. Setting the tray down on the table next to the bed, Temari sighed when Sakura refused to look at her. Glaring at the girl just staring at the ceiling, Temari realized she was going to have to feed the damn pink-haired twit again. You're so lucky my husband wants you alive, Sakura. She said, sitting down and picking up the chopsticks. I really don't know what he plans to do, but now that he is back, you're his problem. Focused on getting Sakura to swallow, Temari didn't notice the brief flicker of life in Sakura's eyes when she mentioned Naruto. Naruto fairly flew out the door of his house and immediately hit the brakes in curiosity when he saw a small line of foxes sitting on their haunches in the training ground in front of The larger fox yipped something at the foxes in line, and one stepped out of line and faced a target dummy. After Reynard yipped again with an obvious tone of command, Naruto felt his eyes widen when the fox spewed a burst of bluish flame. His jaw dropped when the targeted dummy was shattered and not burned. Pinching the bridge of his nose to stave off a headache, Naruto continued on his way. Oh yeah, foxes spewing ice breath is so much better than foxes shooting fireballs. Stupid civilians are gonna freak if this gets out. That cheerful thought dwelling in his head, Naruto took to the roofs and made his way towards the Hokage Tower. Getting close, he dropped to one knee and a wide grin split his face. It was time to pull a page from both his sensei's book. "Good morning, Bachan," he yelled as he popped in through the window of her office. He openly laughed when he saw her choke on the sake she'd been sipping, and knowing the next step of the dance, dodged to the side when she winged the empty sake jar at his head. "Ah, don't be like that, Bachan," he called out as the jar smashed against the wall. "You know you missed me." Tsunade dropped her forehead onto her desk with an audible thump and childishly covered her head with her hands in a vain attempt to make Naruto go away. Peeking up, she saw him still standing there with that infuriating grin, but before she could lace into him, the office door opened and Team Guy entered, followed by Shizune. Tsunade sat up straight in her chair and laced her fingers in front of her face. The brat would pay later, for now it was business. "Naruto, Team Guy, I understand you had an interesting time with this last mission." Report. Naruto proceeded to brief Tsunade on the events in the Land of Snow. Niji and Tenten occasionally interjected with their own observations while Lee maintained a running commentary on the youth or unyouth of certain actions. Ignoring it, Naruto finished up. "Yabachan, turns out that hex crystal thing Koyuki was wearing actually started some sort of heat generator thing. Turns out the treasure Doto team killed his brother over was a way to melt the snow." Tsunade raised an eyebrow. "Seriously? He killed his brother, tried to kill his niece, and the entire time there wasn't even a treasure?" Naruto exchanged glances with his temporary team. "Pretty much, Bachan. Koyuki said that once they get the generator to work right, the Land of Snow would become the Land of Spring or something like that. It's pretty cool though. That's the second country I've helped save, you know." Tsunade rolled her eyes. It was true enough, but she couldn't let it go to his head. "Yeah, that's great, Naruto, but I shouldn't have to remind you that we weren't paid to save a country." Naruto sheepishly rubbed the back of his neck with a cheesy grin. "Oh, yeah, about that, Koyuki sent a scroll for you. She said something about it being payment, and she also sent something else." Pulling his sealing scroll out, Naruto unsealed a battered set of chakra armor and a sealed scroll. Rotating the armor so Tsunade could see it, Naruto grinned. "Yeah, I really hate this stuff, but she said we could have this and I figured the tech guys would like it." Naruto frowned. "We do have tech guys, right?" Motioning for Naruto to seal the armor away, Tsunade rolled her eyes again. "Yes, Gaki, we do indeed have tech guys. I don't know if they'll be able to do anything with this, but I'm sure they'll love it." "Now, the scroll?" "Oh, yeah." Naruto walked to the desk and handed her the scrolls. Opening the sealed diplomatic scroll, Tsunade quickly read it, then stopped and read it again in disbelief. Slowly a maniacal smile formed on her face and Naruto shifted nervously. Anything that made Tsunade smile like that was probably really, really bad for him. He flinched when she turned that gaze on him. "Gaki, you have any idea what's on this?" Niji deactivated his Byakugan with a smirk and whispered to Tenten, causing her to giggle as well. This made his planned revenge even sweeter. Naruto stared suspiciously at Niji and Tenten, then turned back to Tsunade. "No, it was sealed." Tsunade gave him a beatific smile. "Well, you'll find out at the next council meeting. For now, though mistakes were made during this mission, at least you all came home alive." Dismissed. Naruto waited till Team Guy exited, then closed the door and turned back to Tsunade. "Bachan, can we have a private chat?" Tsunade considered him carefully. Naruto was being almost completely serious, which was worrying. Raising a hand, Tsunade signaled the hidden ANBU for privacy. What's on your mind, Naruto? Seating himself, Naruto pulled out a tri-pronged kunai and twirled it around his finger as he collected his thoughts. Bachan, Temari filled me in on what happened while I was gone. He finally started. I'm not sure how I can fix Sakura-chan, but I'm worried about this Iwagakure kunoichi. Tsunade nodded agreement. Yes. You should be extremely careful if Iwagakure accepts, and I expect they probably will. Naruto raised an eyebrow at that and Tsunade smiled bitterly. Jiraiya has done a very good job in cleaning out spies since the Chunin exams. I can't help but feel that since you were asked for first, you are still Iwagakure's primary target. Naruto grimaced. What about Temari-chan? Tsunade drummed her fingers on the desk. Also a possibility. Her death would ruin the alliance with Tsunagakure. I suspect that her life is safe until she delivers her baby, but that adds even more complications. Naruto flexed his fingers as if they were claws. I don't care who they are, Bachan. No one threatens my family and gets away with it. Tsunade smiled grimly. Good, but remember Naruto, you can't act without proof. Even I can't protect you if you do. Naruto stood and flashed her a razor-sharp smile. Don't worry, Bachan. I won't cause serious problems for you. Nodding at Tsunade, Naruto headed for the door. Naruto, Tsunade called as he opened the door. That applies to dealing with the Uchiha as well, just so you know. Naruto waved his acknowledgement of the order and exited the office. Tsunade pinched the bridge of her nose when she realized he had only promised not to cause serious problems. Gaki is gonna stir up trouble, I just know it, she thought. I'll bet his version of serious doesn't match mine either. Naruto paused in the hall outside the office when he almost ran over Neji. Hey Neji, you need something? He was somewhat creeped out by the eerie little smile the normally stoic teen was sporting. Ah, yes. I have something for your wife. Neji said, handing Naruto a small thin box. Princess Koyuki sent this along as a present for Temari-san. Naruto eyed the wrapped box suspiciously. What is it? I believe she said it was an autographed picture. The princess is a famous actress. I have duties I must attend to, if you'll excuse me, Naruto. Neji bowed and left Naruto staring at the box in his hands. As soon as he made it outside, Neji let out a somewhat evil cackle before he could compose himself. He still couldn't wipe the smirk completely off his face. Naruto couldn't help but feel a sense of foreboding as he stared at the box in his hand. He was debating opening it when he noticed someone approach him. Sealing the box into the same storage seal on his sleeve his Kodachi resided in, Naruto looked up to see Danzo observing him. Great, Naruto thought sourly. From what my father's journal said, this guy is no joke. Why Kami? Why is it always me? May I help you, Elder Danzo? He asked politely. Uzumaki-san. Danzo said sternly. I was hoping for a moment of your time. The tone of his voice implied that this was not really a request. I have several things I must do, but I can spare some time, Danzo-san. Naruto replied, heavily emphasizing the sum. Danzo didn't let it show on his face, but the boy was actually slightly impressive. Wary but willing to play the game and not being loud like when he was younger. Perhaps the boy wasn't a total failure after all. This will not take long, Uzumaki-san. If you will follow me to my office? Naruto bowed slightly and motioned for Danzo to lead on. Following Danzo, Naruto frantically reviewed everything his father had written about the man. This was a potentially very dangerous situation for his dream of being Hokage, but it wasn't in Naruto's nature not to accept a challenge. Opening the door to a small office located 2 floors below the Hokage's office, Danzo motioned Naruto to take a seat as he moved behind the desk and sat himself. I'm sure you're curious why I brought you here. It was certainly different. Naruto replied, giving nothing away. Danzo A thin smile. So Uzumaki wishes to play word games. Yes, I'm sure it was. Do you know who I am? Naruto eyed the bandaged man in front of him and suddenly grew tired of the man's game. My father's journal has much to say about you, Danzo-san. Naruto said grimly. He took a small measure in satisfaction at the slight twitch the mention of his father's journal caused in the impassive man. I'm aware of Root, and I'm aware of why my father didn't shut you down even with your training methods. Danzo stared at the boy in front of him with a small degree of shock. Everything he knew of the boy said that if he had information like that, he would never have kept it secret. Who else knows this? Danzo asked, planning on silencing everyone involved. Naruto's eye twitched. Did the man think he was stupid? Ignoring the Kyuubi's laughter, Naruto fought the urge to facepalm when he realized that Danzo did indeed think he was that stupid. Obviously he wasn't aware of Temari tutoring him or the shadow clones he'd left to study when he trained. Book learning was not his thing, but he'd successfully covered the academy classes and then some. Realizing he was getting a bit off course, he glared back at Danzo. Even if there was someone, I wouldn't tell you. I'm not the same as I was when I was in the academy, Danzo-san. Danzo remained impassive. I see, so what do you plan to do with this knowledge of yours? Naruto sat back in his chair. I don't plan on doing anything. I told you, my father didn't shut you down, and I'm aware of the reason he did not. Oh, what would that be? Naruto sighed. Can we stop playing games here? It's boring and annoying. I can't kill you, and you can't kill me. I'm not powerful enough to take you down, and you wouldn't kill the village Jinchuriki without a damn good cause. Danzo tapped his cane as he thought, the boy did have a point. Very well, Uzumaki-san. Why did your father not shut this route down? Still not admitting it, huh? Naruto said with a small sneer. Whatever. My father didn't shut down Root because he knew that there were times he would need a deniable force. Someone that no one could track back to Konoha to do the dirty jobs no one wanted to know about. Sound about right? Danzo gave Naruto another thin smile. Perhaps. If you have this information, why would you not pass it along to the Hokage? Naruto gritted his teeth in frustration. Stupid old man wasn't giving him anything. Because it wouldn't do any good and would do much harm. Bachan would never accept that something like Root could be needed, and I would prefer not to start a round of civil war in the village. Especially since Kumo and Iwa both have to be eyeing us for any sign of weakness after the invasion. Danzo sat back in his chair. That's very fascinating, Uzumaki-san. I noticed that you failed to mention Tsunade as a possible enemy. Perhaps your wife is influencing you? Naruto growled at Danzo and forced himself to relax when he heard the wood of the chair creak from the pressure he applied to it. I would leave my wife out of this conversation if you desire to continue breathing, old man. You know that Tsunade is not a threat to us, and frankly it will be years before they could be. Temari-chan swore an oath to Konoha, and I dare you to find any time she failed to uphold it. No, your wife is an admirable kunoichi, and I am pleased that she takes her treaty duties seriously enough to already be carrying an heir. Naruto flushed a bit at that. It certainly hadn't been planned. Danzo continued, secretly somewhat amused at Naruto's discomfiture. I will admit that this meeting has not gone planned and that you are not what I was led to believe. That leaves me with the question of why you came. Naruto sat forward and stared directly into Danzo's eye. Stop supporting the Uchiha. Danzo couldn't hide a small flinch. Pardon? Naruto gave him a teeth-filled smile. My father's journal states that you wanted to become Hokage yourself. Now that my heritage is known, and no one is sabotaging me, perhaps on orders from a certain council elder, the one most likely to become Hokage is me. Danzo tilted his head quizzically. Your statement does not answer my question. We both know that unless something happens to me, I'll be Hokage, which means you will not be able to fulfill the desire of yours. Naruto replied evenly. As I stated earlier, you can't kill me cause I'm the village Jinchuriki and a smear campaign would be useless. The older civilians pretty much hate me, but try to kiss my ass anyway since I'm a Namikaze. The younger civies and most of the shinobi, now that they know what I am, aren't really happy with their elders. I'm getting sidetracked. Since you won't become Hokage, you will be looking for an heir to your legacy. Danzo tapped his cane. Say that you are correct. Why would I not support a member of a founding clan? Because ultimately he will betray you as well. Naruto said with a sigh. I've had a lot of time to think about it, and Sasuke was always driven by power. In and of itself, that isn't bad, but he seeks power simply for power's sake. Danzo frowned. Well, you seem to have all the answers. What would you suggest, Uzumaki-san? Naruto stood and moved towards the door. If I were you, I'd take one of your drones, one that you haven't completely broken yet. Take that member and train them to be your successor. I know of your training from my father's journal. Naruto reminded Danzo. I would point out that emotionless weapons are sort of a one-time use. I would suggest you give them something to fight for other than just your orders. Having said his piece, Naruto exited the office, leaving Danzo deep in thought. Danzo stared at the door after Naruto left, replaying the conversation in his head. The Jinchuriki was far more dangerous than Danzo had believed, but that was a good thing. He didn't agree with many of the boy's points, but perhaps he was right about the Uchiha. That banishment of his former wife in front of the entire council had certainly not been a wise move, even if Danzo had played it to his advantage. He wasn't quite ready to give up that investment, but Uzumaki's suggestion about training a replacement had some merit. Perhaps he should begin to train an heir as he watched the Uchiha. Naruto moved quickly after exiting the Hokage Tower. The meeting with Danzo had frazzled his nerves and he hoped the man had bought his explanation. Naruto had every intention of tearing the organization out by the roots. He smirked a bit at the pun in his head, but he was being totally truthful when he told Danzo the timing wasn't right. He had a feeling that Danzo was going to become a giant pain in his ass in years to come, but hopefully the man would stop backing Sasuke. Naruto paused in his wandering as he passed the Yamanaka flower shop, and he remembered that Temari still hadn't handed him his head over, leaving with just a note. Perhaps he could head that off? Walking through the door to the jingle of the bell, Naruto smiled cheerfully when he saw Ino studying a scroll at the counter. Hey, Ino-chan! He called out, startling the poor girl with his volume. You know that whole language of the flowers thing, right? Ino rolled her eyes at him behind the counter. Well done, Naruto, I'm not only a kunoichi but a florist as well. Naruto rubbed the back of his neck and gave her a sheepish smile. Yeah, I know that, I was just checking. So, is there a floral arrangement that says sorry, I left on a month-long mission and told you with a note? Ino narrowed her eyes at him. You did that? Naruto nodded. You're still alive? How is it that fangirl didn't kill you? Naruto shrugged. When I got home last night, Temari was really worn out from watching Sakura-chan. I rubbed her shoulders when I tucked her into bed and I had to report to Bachan this morning. She hasn't really had time to go off on me yet. Ino nodded. Alright, I'll help you savior, but this time, Whiskers, but only because I need you alive to snap forehead out of whatever it is she's doing. Thanks Ino-chan, you're awesome. Naruto beamed at the girl, completely missing the bush his comment caused. So, what can I use? Ino moved to a display case and rapidly assembled a bouquet. These are desert lilies I grew from the leftover seeds from when you and Gaara made that oasis for Temari. I can't promise that these will save you, but since they are her favorite flower, it's worth a shot. Yada! Naruto yelled, wrapping Ino up in a bear hug. Thanks Ino-chan, you're the greatest. Grabbing the bouquet and tossing some bills on the counter, Naruto dashed out of the shop and headed home. Behind him, Ino slowly sank onto her stool behind the counter, blushing furiously. No way. She whispered to herself. There is just no way, I can't like him. It was perhaps fortunate for Ino's state of mind that she didn't see her father watching her from the entrance to the back of the shop. Most interesting indeed. Hurrying home, Naruto was disappointed to find a note from Temari saying she would be home in the late afternoon. Pulling out a vase, Naruto placed the flowers in some water and then took a deep breath as he headed upstairs. Opening the door to Sakura's room, he hid a wince when he saw her staring blankly at the ceiling. Sitting himself in the chair next to the bed, Naruto reached over and laid his hand on her shoulder gently. "Hello, Sakura-chan. Hope you liked this episode. The next one is coming soon.